companies out to Silicon Valley, this is where we take them. So I also hope to see all of you there someday as well. And we have lots of resources available online where we share startup best practices. So please do check out our website, the Google Developers blog, and also follow us on YouTube to get some of the latest content we have there. So Launchpad is about community and is anchored by the world-class mentors. And some of them are here today. As Shinto mentioned, we have 22 mentors who've flown in from around the world to speak to you today. So we're really excited and hope that you also will network with them later. They'll be here to answer any questions that you have. Launchpad startups benefit from a set of tested methodologies and best practices designed to support and build a strong startup ecosystem. So, in summary, Launchpad is a global mentoring program helping raise the ceiling of what's possible for startups around the world. And now it's time for you to get that Launchpad experience. So let's get started. I want to invite Martin from Google to talk to you about what it takes to become an effective founding team. Terima kasih.
Selamat pagi.
Pagi.
Saya Martin. Saya dari Google Singapore. Maaf sedikit bisa bahasa, so I will speak in English if you don't mind. My job here for the next 30 or 40 minutes is I want to share with you some of the things that we've learned in helping a lot of startup founders in being successful. Let me tell you a story. Meet John and Surya, not their actual names, but people that I know personally. They were classmates in college, in university, and they decided once they were working in their first companies, they came up with a really good idea. And they were working on evenings and weekends, creating a prototype, and it reached a point where they had a really good prototype, get some funding from angel investors so that they could hire a few engineers to help them on this. So they decided, let's quit their jobs and do this full time. And they were reaching a point where they were about to launch, and so they invited Astrid. Astrid came from a big consumer goods company, like Unilever or Danone, and she came in as a VP of marketing, co-founder, and so they were ready to launch. Let's zoom in a little bit into the life of Surya. So Surya hired, with the angel investment, hired 5 fresh grads out of possibly the best, engineering university in Indonesia. Which one is it? Is it ITB or UI or what is it? Both. I like that. So hired 5 fresh grads to join the team. But he quickly realized that these fresh grads did not know anything. They were not as smart as Surya was, and he got so frustrated that he said one day, I'm just going to fire them, and instead I will hire 2 experienced engineers to join my team. And so he thought this was the perfect plan. And so he hired 2 experienced engineers, came into the team, and 6 months later, they approached him and said, I have nothing more to learn from you, Papa. And so we are leaving. And so their launch was put on in jeopardy. Now, you can imagine how Surya is feeling at this time. He's really stressed out, doesn't know what to do. He feels very ashamed to John, who trusted him. And by the way, they decided very early on that they would split the equity 50-50, so he has to put in the same amount of effort as John is putting in. And so he just keeps on trying. He keeps quiet. He works harder. He works longer on weekends and during the week. And then he'll try to do some interviews, but he's not sure that he can find good developers who are willing to work for him, given that he had 7 of them even already. So that's Surya. Let's talk about John, the CEO. So John knows that Surya is stressed out, but he keeps quiet. He doesn't want to pressure Surya even more than he already is feeling. He's like, I'll let him be, I'll be a good partner and just keep quiet. But very quickly he gets nervous. Will we launch on time? Will we meet our investors' expectations? And also, will I be able to earn money one day if we don't launch? And so he gets nervous. And so because he gets nervous, he starts to sign up for these side projects. He will, he'll work for a few other companies here and there, do a little bit of work so he can earn some money. But he didn't tell Surya about it. He kept it to himself. Well, guess what? Surya finds out. And how do you think Surya is feeling at this point? He's probably feeling like he was cheated, that it's unfair. Why do I have 50% equity, but I work so much harder? I should have more equity than John did, and he's earning all this money. And even if Surya wanted to do side projects, he couldn't because he was so busy doing the work of 7 people that fired or resigned. One day, the biggest issue in the relationship comes up. Tech in Asia invites them for an event to give a talk, to do an interview rather. But Tech in Asia said, we just want one person from your startup to represent your company. And John knew that this was important for raising funds, and so he knew that we had to be there, whether it's me or Surya. But he was very quick to say, you know what, Surya's very busy, let me be the one to go in front of Tech in Asia and do this interview. Meanwhile, Surya, who's working hard in the background, trying to hit his launch deadlines, looks at his CEO and co-founder, John, and he thinks, wow, the world knows John's name, they don't know my name. Everyone thinks it's John's startup. He gets all the glory, and I do all the work. And by the way, he only just has 50% of that. That's John. Now let's go to AskU. So I said that AskU came from a big, large multinational. And when she came on, she was given 10% of the stake, and she was happy with this, with the salary. Now the problem here is when they started on this journey, they were very clear that this was going to be a consumer-facing app, a B2C play. But at some point during the validation stage, they discovered that they had to pivot, and the product was going to go from a B2C product to a B2B product. And so from doing marketing, like digital marketing, to reach out to the millions of people, they now had to knock on doors in the corporate, in large corporate offices and close big deals. Well, guess what? She's from marketing. She's from a place like Unilever, Danone. They don't do sales. Sales is not something that people in marketing like to do. It's beneath them. And so she gets frustrated, but she also clearly does not have the skills to pull this off. Now she's about to quit. She was renamed the VP of Business Development, and she hates that title. And she realized maybe I have better things to do in my life, and so she's about to quit. But on the day before she quits, Surya and her go out, and Surya gossips with her and tells her everything he feels about their CEO, John. And so at this point, Astri is feeling he should not be the CEO. I should have a bigger stake in the company. I should have more. Now, you might look at this story of John, Surya, and Astri and think, wow, they're such a broken team. They're terrible. I would never want to work with these people. Unfortunately, this is actually happening much more often than we would like. There's some research that came out of Harvard that surveyed venture capitalists. And they asked them, of all the funded startups that had failed, what was the reason for their failure? Why did they fail? Was it because they ran out of cash? Was it because they didn't have, they didn't flourish in the market? That survey discovered that 65% of funded startups that failed because of people issues. And people issues, what that means is it's a bundle of a few things, but it includes things such as co-founder conflict, fighting within the co-founding team. That is the number one. And then there are other things such as we can't hire the right people. And then we hire the top 2 engineers in the graduating batch, but we can't keep them because they're not excited about the work we do. They hate working with the boss. It includes things like the co-founder does not scale well, and so their skills just don't grow as fast as our company needs it to grow, and so they walk away from the startup. We've done quite a bit of work over the past few years with a lot of growth stage startups, and we've discovered something very similar, that people issues are a real big problem, but we almost never talk about them. You go to every other startup event, and they will almost never talk about the challenges of being a founder and a co-founding team. And so we built a program called the Leaders Lab, and we brought it all across the world to about 18 countries across these 4 continents. And so far, we've touched close to about 200 founders and CXOs. And we've really learned that it's truly an issue. So what I want to do now is share with you the top 3 things that we've learned in working with people challenges. And some of you might be in the process of finding a co-founder. Well, I have some advice for you on that. Some of you already have a co-founder and you hate their guts. And so I have some advice for that too. And maybe some of you are already ready to walk away, ready to quit and do your own thing. Well, use this thought as a way to reflect on what might we learn from all that you experience. All right? Are you ready for some good input? Yeah? All right. Okay. Before we jump in, I think the reason it's so easy to understand why people challenges are really common and so much more common than we like to think is because people are buggy. If people are like code, they have so many bugs. And it's so difficult to fix all these bugs because you fix one bug today and very soon after you will discover that they have more bugs that you need to fix. It might be even easier to work on code because you can put your head down, figure out what's wrong, and then tomorrow it will work and it will sustain, the code will sustain, but not the same with people. People are dynamic, are strange sometimes, weird, they're hard to deal with, right? And people are difficult. So a lot of what I'm going to share today, really are simple things, but difficult to do. So the first thing that we've learned is that one of you is greater than 2 of you. So let me be clear, I'm not saying that you should be a solo founder. In fact, far from it. We know that 80% of startups found as a co-founding team. And it makes a lot of sense because it's a very stressful experience. So you want to co-found with someone else. So 2 is better than 1. But 1 of you is better than 2 of you. And let me explain to you what I mean by this. So Linda Greer, a Stanford professor who teaches a class called The Psychology of Startup Teams. She says that the number one people problem in these startups is this. People like to hang out with the people who are like them. You want a zebra would want to hang out with a zebra, probably wouldn't want to hang out with a lion, it could be dangerous for that zebra. But it's human nature, it's a human condition that we want to be with people who are like us. Now that natural tendency is going to really be a liability for you. It's going to be a real problem for you in the future. Many of you are going to co-found your startup with a friend or a classmate. And even worse, some of you are going to co-found with your girlfriend or boyfriend. Okay? And we studied this. There's been some research done on the kinds of people that come together to start up tech startups. And we know that family and friends, that combination of people is the least stable of startup relationships. Now you might say, oh, Larry and Sergey Brin, really good friends, and you can think of so many different examples. Well, for every one person, for every one startup that's founded by good friends, you have a few other startups founded by good friends that failed. You just don't know about them. Survival bias. So we know that it's less stable, and the reason for that is it takes extra effort to make sure you're having the difficult conversations that you need to have because you worry about the friendship. You value the friendship so much, right? We know that it's more stable to co-found with an acquaintance that you will create a partnership with through an interview-like process, right? You interview someone, maybe you'll do a bit of work at the beginning, maybe let's do a 3-month trial, and let's co-found together after that. That seems to be a more stable arrangement. The most stable arrangement is when you co-found with former coworkers, because it's with coworkers where you have good friendship, you trust each other, which is what you want from co-founding with friends, right? But with coworkers, you trust each other because you work together, but you have a professional distance that you can call the person out on their bullshit if you need to, and you haven't known each other for all your lives, and so you're willing to take a risk. And so this research was looking into this, that if you plot out the damage if the relationship blows up, we found it so much higher than all these other 2 arrangements. And as a result, and this is really what is the reason for the difficulty, is that the likelihood of having sensitive discussions, giving feedback, getting into arguments, really decreases when you're founding with family and friends. And it increases when you're working with past coworkers. So if you're in the process of finding a co-founder, think about this, reflect on it. Now, it's not black or white. There are some startups that succeed wildly when they found with a girlfriend or boyfriend or with friends. And there are good reasons to do that. But think about it more deeply, because the data is working against us here if that's your first idea. Now, you don't have to found with someone who's completely different from you. There are certain things that you need to be similar on, and there's things where you need to be very different on. There are 3 things, I think, that you need to be very similar on. You need to be similar on your vision and values. Why are we doing this? What do we want to build? What is acceptable in how we build this startup, in the way we interact with each other, in the way we express anger and stress? Like, are we aligned with that? And that's important. The second one is around motivation and commitment. If you're planning to co-found a startup and one of you is working full-time in a big company and earning a salary, and a few of you are doing this full-time, doing the startup full-time, then that's going to be a tricky situation. The other big piece of advice is if you have a symmetry, an imbalance in level of commitment, time commitment, please do not, at the beginning of your startup, say, let's split equity, equally, whether it's 50-50 or 30-30-33. That's the worst idea ever. Okay, what you instead might want to do is to have conditional agreements. So if someone quits his job to do this full time, then their equity stake will go higher. If someone continues to do their core job and does this only part time, then this would therefore be their either salary or equity. So you want to be very aligned on levels of commitment. The last thing, which I think is the most important, is do you fight well? You need to know how to fight well together. And if there is one person that you would much rather have an argument with, it should be your co-founder. Because you're going to have a lot of them, trust me. And you need to know how to be able to resolve conflict effectively. We'll go more into that. Now, the areas where you want to be different and diverse are really these 4 areas. So you want to have different skills. If 2 of you have exactly the same background, exactly the same skills, one day you're going to realize that, where do I contribute, where do you contribute? You want to have different networks from which you will hire your first employees, you'll maybe reach out to your first investors or advisors through those diverse networks. You also want to have different decision-making styles. Let me share a little bit more what I mean here. So some founders, the way they make decisions are very driven by the heart, very intuitive, very visionary, very sure that this is how we need to move forward, and let's just go with all our energy and resources go forward there. And then there are people who value data a lot more, who would much rather validate certain things through a more rigorous, methodical approach. Well, you actually want to have those 2 kinds of people in your co-founding team. That makes for a stronger team. You also want to have different risk tolerances. Some of you might be ready to make big investment decisions just like that. Well, if you are the type of person who is courageous and ready to take risks, you need to find co-founders who can balance that out for you, who can highlight for you the risks of making certain decisions, and who can think, who can think and be a pessimist for you while you're being the optimist. All right. So we have collated for you, and this is a resource that that you all can get to. So we've talked to the founders that we've worked with through our work in the Leaders Lab, and we've asked them. So if you had a chance to turn back time, right before you actually chose your co-founder, what questions do you think you should have asked them, or you want to ask to make sure you make a really good decision? So we've compiled a really good one-pager called the 25 things you need to know before inviting a co-founder. There's a bit.ly link up there. So please go in there. If you're looking for a co-founder, go through this list and make sure you have a good sense of this person before you then decide to partner with them. It has questions such as if media asks us to come and only one of us needs to represent the company, who would do that? Like the problem with Surya and John. Or if we're going to fire someone, are we going to fire an employee based on performance? Are we also going to fire people based on values, on their contribution to culture? If someone is rude, will we allow that in our startup, or is that something that we won't tolerate? Right? So these are very important questions to get aligned on before you get married to this business world. So that's the first one. Now, if you founded with a friend, or even a girlfriend or a boyfriend, don't worry, your startup is not doomed to fail. Okay? There are still ways to help make sure that you still succeed. One thing you will find is as you start working together in your startup, the way you work will be very different. You might start to question the quality of the work of your co-founders, and it's very natural for people to get stressed out and for firewalls to get built over time. And I see this a lot when I work with startups here in Indonesia especially, where they have an argument that they want to bring to their co-founder, but they will just keep quiet, or they'll delay it by a few months. Let's see if it will just fix itself. And trust me, it almost never fixes itself. And so the second thing that we've learned is that we really need to disable firewalls by forcing difficult conversations. So at Google, we do a lot of research around our people. We have a bunch of PhDs that study our people. And recently, in the past 5 years, we went into a piece of research that looked into our best and worst teams at Google. And we wanted